Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking aim at one of the absolute most repeated pieces of financial advice out there. Seriously, if you've ever tried to get your financial house in order, you've almost certainly run into a very specific, universally accepted budgeting rule. I mean, it's plastered across every financial blog, it's recommended by the experts, and it's basically treated as the undisputed gold standard of money management. But what if I told you that trying to force your actual, messy life into this tidy little formula might be the exact thing holding you back? Today, we're going to break down exactly why this rigid rule is flawed. And more importantly, we're going to build a blueprint for a real budgeting system that actually works in the real world. Okay, let's dive into this. The classic 50-30-20 rule. The premise here is incredibly straightforward, which, is probably exactly why it became so unbelievably popular in the first place. According to this rule, you take your after-tax income and you slice it into 3 perfect pieces. 50% goes to your absolute needs, 30% goes to your wants, and the final 20%, that's dedicated strictly to savings and paying off debt. It sounds simple, right? It sounds perfectly logical. And frankly, for a very specific subset of people, it can actually be kind of useful. But as a universal law for managing your money, it's got a fatal flaw. Which leads us to a rather provocative question. Is this budgeting rule actually keeping you broke? I really want you to think about that for a second. Because if you've ever sat down at your kitchen table with a calculator, tried to apply these precise percentages to your paycheck, and felt just this immediate crushing wave of financial anxiety, you are absolutely not alone. That frustration you're feeling, it's not because you're bad at math, and it's definitely not because you lack discipline. The real problem is that we're trying to apply a super rigid formula to a modern economy that is just anything but predictable.
Look, real life simply does not fit into 3 perfect percentages. If you live in any major city today, keeping your rent, your food, and your utilities strictly under 50% of your take-home pay might literally be mathematically impossible. I mean, trying to perfectly predict a utility bill in the middle of a freezing winter or a blazing summer, it's basically a guessing game. When the baseline cost of merely existing in your zip code blows right past that 50% limit, the whole rule instantly breaks down. So if these percentages don't work for us, what are we supposed to do instead?
Well, the first step is a massive psychological shift. Most people fall right into the trap of asking, where did my money go after it's already been spent? They look at their bank account at the end of the month, see a dwindling balance, and panic. That is a fundamentally reactive approach, and it's exhausting. Instead, we need to ask, what is this dollar's job before we spend a single cent? That is proactive. Instead of tracking the money that's already escaped out the back door, you're assigning a specific purpose to it right up front. And this brilliantly illustrates the core concept of zero-based budgeting. Now, don't let the term intimidate you. It absolutely does not mean your bank account actually goes to zero. It simply means deciding in advance exactly where your entire income should go. You're mapping out the destinations, your bills, your savings, your investments, your debt payments, and yes, your fun spending too. You don't necessarily have to spend every single dollar, but you do have to account for every dollar. You're finally taking the steering wheel. You really need to internalize this if you want to succeed financially. A budget isn't supposed to make you feel poor. It's supposed to tell your money where to go. So many of us view a budget as a punishment, right? Like some strict financial diet where we aren't allowed to have any fun whatsoever. But extreme budgeting plans that make you absolutely miserable, they're totally destined to fail because they just aren't sustainable for the long haul. A good budget is empowering. It's a tool for designing the actual life you want to live. So if we're completely throwing out the 50-30-20 rule, we need a solid replacement. And here it is. Stop using percentages and start using priorities. Percentages are completely blind to your daily reality. Priorities, on the other hand, adapt to whatever real-world situation you're currently facing. When you prioritize, you're making sure that the absolute most critical aspects of your financial life are secured first, completely regardless of what arbitrary percentage of your income they happen to take up. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can think of your money as a 4-level hierarchy. It's almost like a pyramid you have to climb. Step 1 is survive. Step 2 is protect. Step 3 is grow, and step 4 is enjoy. You cannot, and honestly, you should not, jump ahead to the higher levels until the foundational levels beneath them are solidly locked in place. So let's break down exactly what each of these crucial steps entails. Level 1 is survive. These are your absolute essential, non-negotiable expenses that are required to simply function in society. We're talking housing, basic groceries, keeping the lights on, transportation, and insurance. And listen to this, it really doesn't matter if this takes up 40% of your income or 70% of your income. It has to be covered first, period. Everything else comes second. Then we move to level 2, which is protect. Once your survival needs are met, your immediate next priority has to be financial security. And that means two very specific things: building an emergency fund and attacking dangerous debt. Now, why is this level 2? Well, because one unexpected expense, say a broken transmission on your car or a sudden medical bill, can completely destroy a fragile financial situation. Without emergency savings, you're basically forced to rely on credit cards to survive those surprises, and that traps you in a toxic cycle of debt that is incredibly difficult to escape. Speaking of debt, paying down high-interest credit cards is effectively giving yourself a guaranteed massive return on your money. It's like cutting off a financial drag parachute. This is where so many ambitious people make a really critical mistake. They get super excited about building wealth, so they try to invest aggressively in the stock market, all while they're still carrying 25% interest on the credit card. Actually, scratch that. It makes zero sense. You have to cut the parachute before you can truly accelerate into wealth building. Okay, so once you're protected, you reach level 3, grow. This is where you focus heavily on long-term investing and actually making your money work for you. But to succeed here, you absolutely have to avoid the hidden wealth trap of lifestyle inflation. This happens when your income rises, but your spending habits automatically increase at the exact same speed. Did you know the average person spends roughly 80% of any new raise within the first 6 months? It's crazy. You get a bump in pay, so you instantly upgrade your car or move to a fancier apartment. Your income increased, sure, but your actual financial freedom didn't budge an inch. To fight off lifestyle inflation, you really need to change your internal dialogue. When people get a raise, they usually ask the exact same question: how much can I afford to spend now? Instead, we want to start asking, how much can I afford to keep? It is a completely different psychological framework. Consider directing a significant chunk of every single income increase straight towards your long-term investments, ideally before you even get used to seeing it in your checking account. Finally, we arrive at level 4, enjoy. And please hear me clearly on this one. You do not have to eliminate your wants. You absolutely should be able to enjoy your money, travel, go out, and buy things you genuinely love. The real secret here is intentional spending. Spend heavily on the things you truly value, but cut aggressively on the things you barely care about. If you're someone who loves travel, allocate a bigger part of your budget there. But if you don't actually care about designer clothes, just ignore the urge to spend thousands of dollars trying to impress other people. When you step back, it all boils down to this one fundamental truth. Personal finance is personal. There is no universally perfect percentage that's going to magically align with your specific income, your specific zip code, your specific family dynamics, and your specific dreams. Your budget has to be exactly as unique as you are. So, the crucial point is, how do you actually put this flexible system into action without driving yourself totally crazy? Automate everything. Seriously, the very moment your paycheck hits, you should have automatic transfers set up to move money right into your savings or investment accounts. Pay yourself first. Because let's be honest, if you wait until the end of the month to bravely save whatever happens to be left over, well, you're almost certainly going to discover that there is absolutely nothing left. Now, while automation is incredibly powerful, it doesn't mean you can just set it and forget it forever. You must review your budget monthly. And you aren't doing this because you failed at the math. You're doing it because a truly successful financial plan has to adapt to your evolving life. Your rent goes up, your priorities shift, maybe a new baby arrives. A rigid percentage-based rule breaks under that real-world pressure, but a priority-based system adapts right along with it. So, is the 50-30-20 rule completely useless? No, of course not. It's a decent starting framework. It gives beginners a general sense of balance, but it should never, ever become a financial prison. The goal isn't to find a perfect mathematical formula that just looks pristine on a piece of paper. The actual goal is to build a customized, flexible system that you can consistently stick to month after month, year after year. Because that consistency is what ultimately turns small financial decisions into massive, real financial freedom. So, right before your next paycheck arrives, don't ask yourself what imaginary percentage you're supposed to be spending. I want you to answer 3 honest questions. What must I pay to survive? What must I protect for my security? And what can I invest in my future?
Align your money with those answers, keep questioning the old rules, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.